Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our 25th edition of our Mental Health Tuesday. We do this because it's important. We know out there matters of mental health are very important and critical, and we have found a lot of us, our people, suffering mental health, and others taking their own lives, and others taking others' lives. So we took it upon ourselves to create this opportunity so that we can be having a conversation around mental health awareness, and that we can be able to understand contexts and also be able to support ourselves and also the people around us. So welcome, my name is Mohammed Ali Machausa from Samba Sports with Agenda. I will be supported by Amani Nouri, who is going to moderate, and I'll be on standby. So let's pray and then we start. Dear Lord, we come to you, thanking you for all the opportunities that you gave us. We thank you for the blessing of life, the blessing of this meeting. We ask of you to be with us and that you walk with us in this conversation, and that make it meaningful, and that it becomes a vital opportunity for us to be better in our mental health and for us to be able to reach out to others who are suffering. We believe that with you, as we pray using your name, and that you can be working with us, then everything that we are asking of you will be possible. Thank you, and we pray and believe. So I will allow Nuri to take us through the preliminaries, and then he will invite Mary, and then we take off. Nuri?
Thank you, Mohammed. Also, thank you everyone for those of us who are joining in. It's been a great week, I suppose, for everyone. And for those of us who have had adversities also, and also problems here and there, we say sorry, but I hope after this session, we'll have found calmness and also tranquility amongst ourselves. Our session today will be for us to understand that suicide doesn't happen. There are procedures and also steps that someone undergoes for them to say, now it's up, time is up, I need to hang myself and let it go. So last week we had a very good session to understand what suicide is, and the things that culminate for us to go ahead and say, you know, this is tough for me. I'm tired, I want to do this, all those signs. But now we look deeper into them to understand even better. And our psychologist, Mary Gitau, will help us through. I believe that some of us will take this opportunity to learn and also unlearn a few things about suicide, depression, trauma, but mainly to understand what suicide is and the stages that take one to suicidal thoughts and more. Mary, you're welcome.
Hi, everyone. I am delighted to be here again this evening, and thank you so much, Samba Sports, for having me here. And thank you, everyone, for sacrificing this important time of you being with your family for us to be here and keep learning and knowing what do we do when we get into those spaces of suicide. So I am so grateful that we could find time. Again, as usual, the topic of discussion is suicide, and we are not in the same boat. We are in the same storm, but not in the same boat. You could find yourself that you're struggling, and some of the things that we could say here could probably affect you, and you could feel that you need help. Please do not hesitate to get in touch with one of us for us to be able to help you, to walk with you, to hold you, because we are here for you, and that's why we're doing this. That's why this event is organized every week by Samba Sports, so that we can keep learning, so that we can keep taking care of each other. That on top of learning, we are taking care of each other. So always find our contacts. I will share our contacts. And in case you feel that you need support, do not hesitate. Even as we continue, you matter to us, and we want to help you. We want to hold you. So stop us, get in touch, and let us work with you. So as I'll be doing this discussion, it will be more of a discussion today as opposed to as opposed to a presentation. I will allow us to reflect on a few things that have been happening to us over the last couple of weeks and days in the previous, for us to be able to understand what really has been happening to us. So when I'll be doing that, at times we have issues with network, so I will be off video just to be on the safer end. But then after that, I will come back for any question. So I will also do, I'll share my slides. So this is what I'm calling what we are going through, the suicide wave that never was. And true to it, as a country, we have faced so many suicide in the last few months. And this year has been hard. We've started well, but then every day, at the news, most of us have even decided that we will keep off news because you probably have had a good day. Then at the end of the day, you get to switch on that TV and then you hear we've lost somebody again. Statistics are just numbers with tears wiped away. Every time one person is reported, so many others have been affected. And for me, it breaks my heart completely. It shatters me. And that's why we have to keep having this conversation. What is happening? What can we be able to do? Not just learning what's happening, but what can we be able to do within our means to prevent so many deaths happening, so many premature deaths happening, because we can be able to do it. So the suicide wave that never was. So those are our contacts for us who are here and you're probably feeling, or you get to that place of feeling overwhelmed. Please do not hesitate to get in touch with us. We care for you and we want to work with you. So the reason why we are here.
Sorry, Mary, please move the slide.
Okay.
Please move the slide. Yeah,
you're
talking about the contacts, but we are still on slide 1.
Oh, okay, that one. I am moving them. Can you see them? The
okay, just continue. I think from my end, I'm just seeing the first slide.
Okay, how about the
We
others?
are also seeing the first slide. The slides are not moving. Yeah, now it's moving.
Now you're.
Yes,
Can
now
you
we
see
see.
them?
Yes, now you can move them. Now you can move them. We can see.
You're good? Okay. So the reason why we keep having this conversation is our greatest scare. My greatest scare as an individual is losing another person to suicide. And that is a scare to all of us, because all of us, or most of us, if not all of us, have been affected in one way or another by suicide. Some of us have lost somebody directly attached to us. Some of us have lost clients. Some of us have lost family members, colleagues, schoolmates, college mates, neighbors, someone from the community. And every day, our greatest scare is losing somebody to suicide. We keep wishing, how could we have stopped this? Is there something I could have done as an individual? When we're thinking about the greatest scare, we all want to do something. We all want to get to a place of helping. We all want to stop this. We all want to stop the suffering. Now, the suicidal person, or the person who is in a crisis, wants to stop suffering in them. They want to move from what is hurting them deep down. Yet, on the other hand, us who are here, the professionals, the friends, the neighbors, the family members, we want the suicidal person to stay alive. So we have different agendas, this person who is struggling, they want to stop the suffering. They want to stop the trauma. They want to stop the struggle. And us, on the other hand, we want the person to continue staying. So different agendas. And these are conflicting agendas, because even as we try to keep them alive, even as we want to make them stay here with us, do we know what they are going through? Do we know what made them to get to where they are? And that's the question, because there's somewhere they're coming from. You know, advanced childhood experiences has taught us that children growing up, they experience so much within them. And you know what happens to our body is that we pick so much trauma, we pick so much pain, that in these moments of the pandemic, some of us found ourselves in those lonely moments that you had time to reflect, and in those reflections, it just hit you. Am I really wanted in this space? I have gone through much. Yet on the other hand, there are us who really care and want to stop this and to give people a new lifeline. These are two different agendas. So how do we balance them out? So suicide risk factors. I think we talked about this last week, but allow me to kind of repeat. So in the last few months, as a country, as a community, as a society, we've lost people to suicide. These are the risk factors that I've highlighted. And clearly, top on the list is relationship problems. It's affected so many middle-aged persons below the 40 year or 45 years. So many people have been affected by relationship. You know, at times we hear infidelity, at times we hear, you know, the spouse couldn't support us, and, you know, that's why I had to end it all. At times, neglect, all this to do with the relationship problems. That tops the list. And clearly, that is so evident to us as a country when we look back in the last few months of what's been happening. The other thing is crisis in the past. Crisis in the past, so much has been happening. So much crisis. Look at the pandemic. You know, that space where you're not able to tell what's really happening, you know, as a family, maybe the family cannot relate anymore. You get to a place of rejection, and that's a crisis, you know. You get to a place where you've probably lost a baby, that's a crisis. You've lost a parent, that's a crisis. You've lost your source of livelihood, that's a crisis. So crisis in the past has been a contributing or a risk factor to the many deaths of suicide that we witnessed in the last couple of weeks. Substance abuse. In those moments of crisis, people abuse substance. And when people are abusing substance, they don't have the right judgment. So there's impulsivity. And the world looks dark. Physical health problems. And physical health problems could be so many, from being not physically fit to so many other things, including not having sufficient food, not having even good housing. You know, those things are associated with our physical health. And it may not necessarily be that one person, but somebody else who is a dependent or a significant other. So your significant other is having physical health problems, and then this person who is supposed to be the support system feels like they have failed because they can't do much, because they can't pay their hospital bills. Job or financial loss. We've lost so many jobs. So many of us are jobless. So many of us cannot get employment anymore. And we know where we are as a country, and that's why we keep talking about systemic change. How do we do recruitment in our organizations? How do we do layoffs in our organizations? Even retirements and retrenchments, that's a job loss, that's a financial loss. And it's a risk factor to suicide. And that's why the elderly, they've been in this employment for so long. And you would think that they've saved enough. Yes, they have. They have built mansions, they've bought property. But you know what? They get to a place where they don't have that liquid cash coming in that they were so much dependent on. And that's a risk factor to suicide. Do we prepare ourselves and our people for retirement? Criminal and legal issues, we know so well. When people get to a place where they're probably, did something and they're expected in court, or they know they'll go to jail, like murder, suicide, loss of housing. So, all these things, they're interrelated in one way or another, all of them. Because relationship problem becomes a crisis and people start abusing substance and, physical health issues, job loss because of maybe too much substance abuse. You get into criminal offenses or small offenses. You can't keep a house because you have no job, you have no employment. So suicide risk factors. And all this, it's about our system. Most of them is about our system. And that is why suicide wave has become the thing. And that is why we're having so many of us lose lives at an early age. So the process, or what happens, the suicidal behavior. First, people develop what you call suicide intent. And suicide intent comes where somebody is going through those risks, traumas, issues, problems, suffering, and they get the idea that dying by suicide is better formed. And it starts becoming consistent. So a person with suicidal intent may think about dying by suicide most of the time, and they imagine life would be better for them, would be better without them, for their friends and for the family. Somebody who probably has lost a job, they're thinking, how can I survive? Imagining that maybe these people don't care. Then, of course, they get to a place of strong intent when they decide to choose suicide as an option. And then you have suicide ideation. So this is the idea about death or dying. Wishing they were dead, or ideas about dying, wishing, if I can't have this job, then why should I be here? If I can't keep up my marriage, I would rather be dead. If I can't keep up with my spouse or in this relationship. So ideas are not usually persistent. And most times, people with suicide ideations do not necessarily go on to die by suicide. But the ideation is a risk factor to suicide. And maybe many of us have found ourselves in this space of ideating about suicide, or thinking about suicide, or thinking of ending it all. This is when hopelessness and worthlessness starts coming in. So you keep having those persistent and strong thoughts of suicide. And when we start getting concerned, when they become more occasional, but they're mild. So even now, as we think about it, just think about your life. Think about those people who are around you, your family members. Is there someone in your network that you know has been ideating about suicide or have been thinking about suicide? Are you thinking of anyone? suicide plan. So when we move from ideations to intent to suicide plan. So when you get to a place of suicide plan, or when somebody gets into a place of suicide plan, it is very clear that they want to act on the suicide, on the idea. And they could be having plans, at times maybe vague, at times clear plans on how they want to do it. And when somebody is in this state of a plan, they have already identified the means. They have already obtained the means. They have chosen the time and they have chosen the place. And this is more or less the last step before the act actually happens. Because now they have the means with them, they've already identified, they've already gotten it, and they know the time and the place. And that is why when you're working with clients who are struggling with suicide, or when we notice one of us is not doing well, keeping safe means obtaining or removing the means of harming themselves from them. So that's why, like, for example, you get somebody who is struggling, or they call you, or they even write on social media, hey, life, I've had it all, I think. When we get in touch with this person, we want to ask clear and precise questions. Hey, where are you? What's happening? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about ending it all? Yes. How do you plan to do it? Do you have anything? Have you decided on how you want to do it? Yes. What have you identified? So and this and this. So I want you to remove it. I want you to give it to me. And even on phone, we can help our clients, all our friends, all our family to remove the means from them. And as I said last week, suicide prevention is all of us business. It's for all of us. And that's why we always use the trauma-informed approach, where we say that creating awareness is good. What we're doing is very good, but we want to act on this awareness. We want to actualize it. We want to act on what we are learning. And most suicides are preventable. Most suicides can be prevented, but we have to play our role in the community, in the homes, in schools, in colleges, on the streets. We have to do our role. So somebody moves from ideating, getting to a space of intending to, and then planning, and then actualizing it. We want to intervene before somebody even gets to a plan. We want to intervene at the first point, when we notice all is not well with our friends, with our colleagues. However, I know it's never easy. We all have challenges helping someone in crisis. And one of the challenges is uncertainty, fear, and anxiety. And this is to all of us. And you know why it is a challenge? Because you may not necessarily know what to do. You're full of fear. What if they actually die here? You're anxious. What will the government do? What will be the church? What will they say at the mosque? Did I fail to do my part? So we get to a place of even uncertainty and even asking so many questions. Why do they want to do it? How could they do it? So that's a challenge. And that's why these platforms are there to help us build confidence on how to ask the right questions at the right time, and to know that all of us have something that we can offer to someone who is struggling or someone who is in a crisis. Because truth is, we all of us in one way or another find ourselves in crisis. So it's only fair for us to know, how do we do it? Number 2 is the conflicting agendas between the two of us. The person who is in a crisis and the person who is meant to help. As I said when I was starting, that this person wants, is at their end. They want to take control. They want to stop the suffering, the trauma, the sexual abuse, the domestic abuse. And our agenda is, you have to be here. You have to, we're almost putting like you have to. So we have conflicting agendas. And at times when we are using, you have to be here, we may not even know how to do it right. But that's still okay. We are in the learning journey. So the conflicting agendas of the two, between the two, the person who is in crisis and the person who is meant to help. And it can be the vice versa. So that's a challenge. Risk of harm due to coercion and control. And this risk of harm is for us who want to help and for those people who are struggling. And coercion, I mean, at times, at times we don't even know what to say. So we might even tell them, we bana, nini nakusumbua? Why do you want to do this? Or controlling them and telling them, you cannot do that. Imagine of this. So we want to control them. And that's okay, because we are human beings, because we're in shock. How could this person be doing that? So we want to take charge, we want to control. And by controlling, we may do things not the right way. So that's a harm, that's a risk to harm. Because the more we want to use control and force and coercion, the more we could be pushing these people to the dark corner. So we feel helpless, yet we have the urge to rescue. I don't have it all, but I have to rescue you. I need to rescue you. That's a challenge, because in your helplessness, you might do it wrong, or even get into a place of crisis yourself. Because you're witnessing somebody who is in crisis and you're feeling helpless. You're in that space of, did I really do anything? Why couldn't I help this person? Why couldn't I be there for them? So that helplessness and urge to rescue. You want to be that person that saves the life of this person. That's a challenge. It could break you, and it could break the other person who is in crisis. Number 5, contagious hopelessness. And what I mean is, if this person is in a place of, this person who is in crisis, they're hopeless, they're feeling hopeless. So, and then we're in that state of wanting to help them. And then we also discover, I think I'm also feeling hopeless. Do I have the hope myself? So contagious. So it can be passed from the person in crisis to the person wanting to help. So these are some of the challenges when we want to help somebody in crisis. But you know what? We have to beat them, because we have to help somebody when they're at that stage of ideating or thinking about harming themselves. And thankfully, we are here to keep learning, to keep knowing how do we do it best. So I know we've heard of something called impulsive suicide behavior. When an attempt is called impulsive, it's not that it happened out of the blue. Just the person does not know or does not want to tell you how it happened. You know, one time you're sitting with somebody, hivyo tu, and we've heard about that. Walikuwa tu sawa. And then out of the blue, they try or they attempt suicide. And then when you ask them, they even have no idea what happened. And probably, and most likely, these people have had a good life, everything figured out, no traumas associated, grew up well, no negative child effects. And that is why we don't associate suicide with mental illness, because some of these things happen. And yes, the person may not even know why that happened. It's just an urge that came. So this is a topic for another day. I'll not get so much into it because it can be a whole hour of just having that conversation about how impulsivity happens. But at times, in most times, it doesn't happen out of the blue. So gradual planned suicide attempts. So there are those that, somebody plans a suicide attempt. And this happens, negative life events coming, cascade of negative life events, resentment towards others, feeling engulfed and capitulating. And they can have detailed planning and deliberation. As a continuation, so there's an ongoing suicidality, there's an ongoing feeling or crisis or suicidal behavior or suicidal thoughts. Strong feelings, urge. Why is that? Ongoing relationship difficulties, conflicts, isolations, avoidance, ongoing feelings of entrapment for months. Why am I here? Why am I in this kind of a relationship? Intense anxiety following conflict, feeling trapped and abandoned. So because they've been in this space for so long, going through difficulties, feeling trapped for months, ongoing difficult relationship, maybe one is in an abusive marriage or relationship or dysfunctional family, they could be thinking and even plan to have an attempt on their lives. We also have unplanned suicide attempts. So there's unclear intentionality and narrative themes. However, ongoing relationship issues, and especially things to do like recent separation. So they've been, this person has probably been having relationship issues, but all of a sudden there's recent separation or infidelity. Then they could get into a place of unplanned suicide attempt because they knew that this relationship is difficult, but then they never figured out separation could happen. They never figured out infidelity could happen. All at times we have experienced those people with anger and erratic behavior. All at times feeling like a burden, inherently flawed or trapped. As a continuation, unclear intentionality, narrative themes, omissions during interviews, loss, suicide attempts in the family, previous suicide attempts in the family or close friends and families, or they've had past suicide ideation and attempts, getting to that place of, I had enough. I've had enough. Even too, just, I've had enough. So how do we help this person or these people? We need to stop the psychological pain and suffering. And how do we do that? The question is, how do we keep our home safe and comfortable and a place to look forward to going? How do we make our workplace safe, out of pain, out of psychological pain and suffering that we enjoy going to the office? We need to address entrapment, high risk of future suicide attempts if the person still feels entrapped. And entrapment could mean so many things, including when people are struggling in relationships. Why do we want to still keep them there? How do we help that? Systemic change again. Do we have peer support networks within us, people that hold us? Addressing social issues. What are some of these social issues that we know? Think about it. What are some of the social issues that are pushing us to the edge of wanting to hurt ourselves? Can we think of any? What's happening to our religious places of worship? Have we formed cliques that kind of puts others off in our workplaces, in our communities? Unfortunately, we're in the political era. What does this mean to us? Addressing attitudes towards suicide, which is what we are doing and we keep doing. What is our attitude towards suicide? To so many of us still, we're still thinking this is a curse. It's a taboo. It's a mental illness issue. These people must be mentally ill. They must be having bipolar. They must be having, that's the attitude. That they get this and we take them to court. The justice system kind gets hold of them. What is our attitude towards suicide? When somebody attempts suicide and they're rescued, how do we integrate them back to our societies, to our communities? Do we appreciate them? Do we take them like nothing happened and still hold them dear as friends to us? Do we still take them as family? Do we appreciate them as classmates and colleagues despite of that crisis they were in? What's our attitude towards suicide? Or do we keep them off? That I don't want to be associated with that person. When somebody or your friend comes and tells you, I've had so many people telling me, you know, when I tell somebody I am struggling and I'm thinking of killing myself, that is the last time I hear of them. What is our attitude towards suicide? So how to help? Let's help the people who are struggling disconnect from internal experiences. And internal experiences may be from internal childhood experiences that have been so hard on people. You know, the emotional pain that somebody could be feeling within. Addressing lack of social support, peer support. Do we have social support around us? Do we have at least 2 people or 1 person that we can call any time of the night and tell them, look, this is what I'm feeling, with no judgment. Like they will not tell you, oh, you know, people in this, you know, somebody like you shouldn't or shouldn't. How is the social support? Because that's what pushes people to the extent when I go tell somebody something and they're like, Mary, how could you? You know, and even if they don't say it, you can actually see it on their face or even in their action, or they stop calling you. You know, loving people for who they are, not what, but who they are. That when they come and say, you know, Mohammed, I did 1, 2, 3, that you will still appreciate me as Mary and protect me and still continue working with me, despite of that one thing that I did, but help me recover from it, holding me accountable, addressing substance abuse, people that we know around us. How have we assisted them come out of this? Piece the experiences together with the patients using corroboration from other sources, addressing shame. When somebody comes and tells us that they're struggling in their relationships, it is not us to judge and say, mwanaume ni kuvumilia, you know, mwanamke anafaa kuhumble, you know. It is collaborating with them and finding them out. How is it? You know, it's not ati mwanaume ni kuvumilia, no. It is helping them deal with the issue and piece the experiences together, hearing them out, hearing their pain out, and addressing shame that could be following them. So thank you for listening. And when I talk about suicide, I can actually get emotional because it's something that is so dear to me. Like, us losing people every day breaks my heart. And you know, just like somebody said, it's a high time we start treating suicide the way we treat our hearts, you know, the way I take care of my heart. So thank you for listening. I wish you guys a lovely evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mary. I think this has been a very, very emotional presentation for most of us. And listening to you and breaking it down from one point to the other, it has been really insightful. And the best we can do right now is hear what the others have to say regarding your presentation and also their contribution. If there are questions, would love to hear them. Please, the whole chat is free for everyone. You can drop in your comments, thoughts, and questions. And if you feel like you want us to hear you out, you have the opportunity by raising your hand. Emilio Moriuki, you have your hand raised. So I suppose we'll give you the opportunity. Before you speak, please, I think Mary is trying to say something. Mary?
No. Sorry. I was just getting my notebook to write the questions.
All right, thank you. Emilio, you have your hand raised, please. I suppose his hand is raised by mistake. So any questions, comments, thoughts? Mary is already having her hand on top of the notebook. Yes, Kate, please go ahead. Kate Mutush. For Kate, Nancy has a question. If you are out of reach with a person, for example, student who you want to create a safe space, for, and maybe the parent are involved in the trauma of the student, how would you remove the means as a way of preventing them to commit the suicide? If you're out of reach with the person, for example, a student who you want to create a safe space for, and maybe the parents are involved in the trauma of the student, how would you remove the means as a way of preventing them to commit the suicide? That is a good question, Nancy Wambura.
Hi, Nancy.
Emilio Murillo.
Okay. So if you want to help the student and to create a safe space for them, one of the things to know is that the fact that they have reached out to you means that they want your help, they want your support. That's why they've come to you. So what you want to ask this student is them to tell you the means that they planned to use. So once they tell you the means, you want to ask them where it is, and you tell them what you want them to do is to get rid of it. They can even get it from wherever it is. If it's whatever it is, they go and throw it. The fact that they reached out to you means that they will appreciate your help. So it is you to take them through the process of discarding the means. And that happens especially for those who've reached out for your help. So what you do is tell the student to tell them to mention the means to you. And then after you know what the means is, tell them that you want them to discard it. And you want them to discard it even as you have a conversation with them on phone. However, this child appears to be, or whoever the student is a child, is in trauma and is in that space. So it's not easy for them to really deal with that trauma or to deal with the issue they're going through in that space. They need to be in a safe space. So as a mental health professional, you want to identify a safe space for this child. You want them to get out of that place. You want them to move out. So help them identify another safe space. This is a child. So that means the Ministry of Children and everything should be involved. So do not let the child be in that space.
Wow, thank you, Mary. I think, Nancy, your question has been answered. We have Muhammad Ali. Is suicide all about death? Can withdrawal be a physical or emotional suicide? Is it right to give time for a victim to open up or work immediately and force them to do so? So as you help them, thank you and good time. I will read the question.
Mohammed.
Sure.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we don't want to force them. What we want to do is we want to help them mention what they are going through physically and emotionally. And yes, suicide is not all about death, because the moment somebody is even starting to think about suicide does not necessarily mean that they'll actually die of suicide or they'll get to a space of hurting themselves. They could be suffering physically or emotionally, psychologically, yes. So what we want to do is we want to give them time. And that is why listening is a very important step in helping somebody who is in crisis. We want to be there for them. We want to hear them out, even if it takes so long. Just listening to them, open up, let them cry if they want to, but be there. Listen to them so that you can help them. It may not even happen in one sitting, but pole, as you hear them out, they will open up. And that's what happens even with trauma. Some of these people have been abused and they can't even actually speak about it. So it takes so much time, you know, and for me as a practitioner and even as a trauma somebody who treats those who've been affected by trauma, at times we get clients to do some exercises, and as they do that, the trauma or what they experienced comes to awareness. And then they can be able to speak about it, and then they can be able to address it. So it's very important for us to be there for this particular person. Thank you so much, Mohammed. So David Ahenda, thank you. Those who have survived suicide are stigmatized by the society so much, including the government, as it is against the penal code. Don't you think it's a high time we come up with a bill in Parliament of course, through our parliamentarian that would address suicide in general. Yes, that's happening. So there are people who are spearheading the decriminalization of suicide, because we need to do that. We need to decriminalize suicide. How does one carry out counseling for a client who's been having suicidal ideation for long and not ready to have a sitting? So just like a normal counseling session that we do, it's possible to do a telecounseling with the client for as long as they've come in. For as long as they've come in for the telecounseling session. Now it is upon you, the counselor, to take it over and to help this client deal with suicidal ideation. Remember, the first mention is suicidal ideation, but what triggered? Why are they in that space of ideation? Why are they thinking of suicide? Why has it been there for so long? So for as long as they have come in, then we can start helping them. And if they've not come in, like I think you said that they're not, so they're coming for telecounseling, but they're not ready to have a sitting. I'm not so sure whether I get it right. So if they've come in for telecounseling, just help them identify, what is this that has been causing me to have suicide thoughts? How can you help a child who came to his senses, getting no help from his divorced parents, and have gone to psychological suicide to bring him back? How old is this child? What trauma has this child gone through? This is a child. So we want to help this child deal with the trauma that they have gone through. And we cannot even have it happen in this space. So at times we may have to withdraw the child from that traumatic place that they're in to a safer place where we can be able to work with them, providing care and psychological support. Because even if they come to the therapy room, where we are, and the parents at home are still continuing with the abuse, it may not do so much difference. So we want to even withdraw the child or take them somewhere safe that they can be able to get help over time. But then the parents, we need to find out what's really happening with these parents. So when you say his divorced parents, is it both parents that do not want to have him in? Or if just one parent, but they're influencing the other parent? So yeah, I think there's so many questions that you need to answer there. But a child who is involved, a child who is below 18 years, in that case, we need to withdraw them and even involve the children department to be able to rescue this child from that dysfunctionality. Over to you.
Thank you, Mary. I think there are more questions coming in, especially the question from Emilio Muruki. How does one carry out telecounseling for a client who has been having suicidal ideation for long and not ready to have a sitting?
I have attempted to answer that.
Okay.
Yes. A child in complete separation and both parents moved on, having other kids. So Mohammed, so that means this child is not in that space. He's not with the abusive parents. Is the child in a safe space as we speak?
Mahmoud?
If the child is in a safe space, then it is possible to work with this child and to help them deal with the issue. One, we want to even help the child to create boundaries between the child and the parent. But how old is the child, Mohammed? How old is the child? 16 years. Okay, so yes, that's possible. If the child is not in the abusive parents, but in a safer environment, then it is possible for us to help this child. If you can involve the child by doing some participatory therapy, and especially them involved with the child therapist, that works a bit better. I will not talk so much on that because I am not so much trained in working with children, but the little that I know with the children, there's so much that the 16-year-old can work so well with the child therapist, and they engage them in doing some activities that will help them bring out the trauma that has so much affected them for that long time. Because this looks like a child who's really gone through a lot over a long duration of time. And yes, this trauma can affect them and even affect their future life. So what we want to do is we want to help this child now. And thankfully, he's in a safe space. So let us work with the child therapist to be able to help this child deal with those traumas and those issues. Thank you, Mohammed.
I think there's one thing that I feel like needs to be clarified as we wind up. You know, when you say that suicide plans could be vague, and sometimes as well they could be very clear with finer details. Can we try to expand that when you said that clear suicide plans have identified means, time, and place? And I feel like most of us, you went so fast in that line, and it'd be good if people understand so that at any point one can identify and see whether this person is in suicidal plan, whether they're too vague or clear.
So I said when somebody's having the thoughts of suicide, they're going through some psychological pain, or things are not working so well for them. So they could have thoughts of suicide that are not so clear, but from afar they could appear vague. You know, where they even start thinking, I think life would be better without me. And at times it could just be normal occurrences of tough kind of life. So that at times could be vague. But then we move from that space of ideating or thoughts to intent. So when I mentioned about intent, when somebody starts having intentions of suicide, at that particular time, they're almost getting to conclude that I want to end my life. You know, those who have ideations may not even necessarily even get to a place of attempting suicide. But when somebody starts developing intentions, they're kind of preparing them. And that is the time we start talking that, you know, they have warning, warning signs where they start saying kwaheri, they start kind of giving possessions and all that. So they're having now intent. They're almost moving to a place of thinking of how can I do this? You know, how can I end it? How can I end it all? You know, they have an idea of dying by suicide. And now at that space, then the thoughts become intense. And like when they're just having, something could happen, like, what if I'm not there? You know, just like the way at times you sit and like, what if I'm not there? What if I get an accident? Those could be some strange thoughts, but they really may not necessarily lead to suicide. But when they get to a place of intention, then they're already imagining life without friends, that, you know, people could be better off without them. Why should I continue in this suffering? Yet I can end it all. And then you get to a place of planning about suicide. So when you get to that place of suicide planning, that means now you have a clear conscience of what you want to do, that suicide will now happen. So, and then we also say that vague plans are also considered part of the intent, that at times at that particular time when you have plan, it's because it started somewhere. And then in suicidal plan, we also say that they've already kind of identified the means of suicide, and they have even already obtained that.
Thank you. Collins, you have your hand raised. We are almost running out of time. We are 9 minutes past 9. Collins.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My question to Mary is that how do you deal with a conflict between the victim and the close family? For example, the husband is the victim and you're trying to help him, but the wife sees that you are coming in between their marriage, and now the victim does not being helped. How do you deal with such a situation? Thank you.
Thank you, Collins. So what you want to do is the person who came to you, this client, let's not call them victims, this client who came to you, who is the husband, came to you to seek help. So what you want to do is you want them to work on themselves. How are they doing? How did they even get into this relationship? What was it all about? The journey of their relationship from point A to point B to how it is ending up now. So let them identify for you what happened. Why is it that my wife is even feeling insecure that I am trying to help? Collins, I'm not so sure whether you're a counselor or as a friend. So what you want this person to tell you or to identify is, why is it that my wife is even feeling that I am intruding? One, as a mental health professional, or two, even as a friend. Why is your wife feeling that I'm intruding? Is there something that happened? So let the man take you through the journey of their relationship. And then because what you want to do is you want to work on this man. And at times, even in that space of how things are, it may not even be possible to help this man. So you want to also ask the man, what are your options? Why are you in this relationship? What's keeping you here? What are your motivations? Why are you validating what your spouse is doing? So that's the same thing. If the wife is also being abused, you also want to ask the same to the wife. Why are you still here? Why are you holding on? What's keeping you? Why are you in this abusive relationship? Yeah. So that's what I will say for now in that scenario. But yeah, it is good to understand, because that can actually be a risk factor to this man. And we want to take care of that. So be a friend. Keep listening to this man.
Thank you, Mary. Mohammed, I think I will take it over back to you. I know we have Dr. Teresa. She just logged in, so probably she might have something to say for today's session. Mohammed, over to you.
Thank you, Nuri and Mary, for this wonderful session again. Let's give Teresa, if she's around, please, Teresa, you may give your voice before we close the session. Teresa? Teresa, are you there? Let me try check. Teresa. She may have we have another Teresa Lendi. We don't have Dr. She may not have joined. So thank you very much, Mary, again for that very elaborate presentation. And we really appreciate, and thanks Nuri for taking care of the moderation. We can't help but end it here, and we will invite Mary again once she's available, and see where she takes us from here. From us here, we say thank you, and God bless you. But we need to keep sharing what we learn to save the lives of so many people out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I wish you guys well.